Greetings and salutations once again. We're back with some more Diablo 2 Resurrected, One Talent Challenge, and Hardcore in Nightmare. I'm my druid. The last place we left him was in Travancore. Last time I went there was some pretty rowdy customers. Um, I did manage to get there and I didn't loot the flail because I'm apparently a fool. Um, Guess that's not much of a shock, is it? And of course, with this, with the season being October and autumnal and spooky season as they call it, I'm not all that up on Halloween, to be honest. And it's not because people like to somehow say it's like, oh, it's a pagan ritual or whatever. Nah, I don't care. That's not the reason I don't. That's not the reason I'm not big on Halloween. Ow! That was painful lightning and ice and everything. What happened there? Jeez. Man, I almost got dropped. That would have been an interesting, fast video, wouldn't it? It's like, welcome back, and I'm dead. Boy. But no, the reason I'm not all that big on Halloween, it's got nothing really to do with the holiday being what it is. And there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, it's about sacrifice and this and that and the other thing. Look, I really don't care what it's about. The reason I don't care for it is because it's become over industrialized. Just a second, there's a fly sitting right over here, and he flew away. I don't want him getting in my coffee, so fly swatter right there. That's what I'll do. And I'll finish my coffee. There. Can't fly in there, can you? Ha ha ha. So, the reason I'm not big into Halloween is because it's become way too over industrialized for me, right? Used to be, it was, yeah, you go out, you celebrate Halloween by, trick or treating, as a kid. Some people put up a Halloween party if you're an adult. Some people used to go trick or trashing when you're a teenager. I never really did. Mostly because, when I got to be a teenager, I was a fat kid. And as a fat kid, I'm like, man, I want free candy, so I'm going to go around trick or treating. Did so up until I was in my 20s. And people are like, you went trick or treating into your 20s? Yeah. And you want to know something? Nobody had an issue with it. Not one person turned me away. Not a single parent looked at me and said, aren't you too old to be trick or treating? Nope. I did have some parents say to me, if you've got the gumption, as they said it back in those days, if you've got the gumption to show up at my door in a costume, then I've got the wherewithal to hand you candy. So, that's how it went. And yes, I would get candy. No big deal. And I've noticed that over the years, it's gotten away from being what it used to be. Like, it used to be this, holiday for the kids, holiday for, just, that's it. Holiday for the kids, get candy, etc., so on, ooh, what have you. And it's slowly morphed into this holiday that it's now, you know, consuming the areas around it. You start seeing Halloween decorations in, June. up in the stores and everything because they have to get ahead of it, and they have to make sure that, people are, having all their Halloween decorations and costumes, and the sales are going on, and it's like, I get it, company wants to make money, sure, okay, cool, but do you really have to, like,
There is hope once again.
do you consistently have to have everything be available, like, right now? Like, it's, you know, the middle of June or whatever. And sure enough, these didn't stop people in the least. They still put up all the decorations and everything. Not personal decorations, but they put up just Halloween stuff in the department stores and everything. And it's like, never liked that. I was never a fan of it at all. And then, Halloween night comes around. And now that I'm much older, I'm the one handing out, like apples to kids, which apples went over huge last year. And because I guess the kids got all sick and tired of, the teenagers got sick and tired of having candy, and everybody's just, they don't want candy. It's weird. It's such a weird thing. Like, when I was a kid, if we got handed an apple, we were like, oh, an apple? Ugh. And then, we were happy to get, like Snickers bars and, like, peanut butter cups. Man, we love that. Nowadays, the kids are just like, oh, cool, apples? Man, can I have two? It's like, yeah. It's like, man, nature must be healing. But no, it's it became a way to over industrialize holidays, so I never really cared for it. So I'm more of a, I like to support the harvest season by just calling it, like, taking like a page out of Seinfeld and calling it like Harvestivus. That way it's a harvest time ritual. It's like, yeah, it's showing that you're gracious about the new, about the big harvest, that kind of thing. And you're happy for the bounty that has been given to you, and so the people that come up and have costumes on, you give them part of your bountiful harvest. It's not like I own an apple orchard, but you kind of get where I'm going with this. I want to make it more about the harvest than it is about being this over industrialized, hey, go buy your kids the most expensive costume and big bags to get, filled with loot. And Christmas has gone the same way, right? And I've noticed this as I got older, that Christmas now starts in like October and doesn't end till March. And James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, said it best. He's just like, they celebrate it way too early, and it just consumes all the other holidays around it. No one cares about Thanksgiving. No one cares about anything else. They don't care about Halloween anymore. It's like, as soon as Halloween's over, there's like, Thanksgiving, what's that? Nope. St. Patrick's Day, music's play, Christmas music plays in Walmart from October 25th all the way through like April 1st. And it's like, you can only hear, Grandma got run over by a reindeer so many times before you start, thinking about gouging your eyes out to the melody. It gets to the point where it's just too much. And it's like, you know what? Just unplug. Just unplug from the over marketing, over industrialization. Same way with like Valentine's Day. Right, my brother's born on Valentine's Day, right? And people say, "Oh, what are you gonna do this Valentine's Day?" Celebrate my brother's birthday. That's about it. Celebrate my brother's birthday. Like, oh, you're not gonna get a special lady and take her out for a dinner date or something? Like every other person's gonna do, you mean? Like every single other human being on the planet is going to do? No, I'm not. even if I had somebody in my life, right? Let's say I had a wife, and she was all, let's go do something for Valentine's Day. Sure. I would plan an entire day about going on a picnic, going and doing cloud gazing in the middle of the day. Or, yeah, in the middle of the day, just cloud gazing. Or have the cloud gazing turn to stargazing at night. Something free. Just throw down a blanket in a public park and watch. Because it's stuff like that that people take for granted, right? Nobody ever sits there and goes, man, I'm going to go stare at the clouds. I know, in February, sometimes it's really cold, depending on where you live. But still, there's free things you can do. It doesn't always have to be this big, extravagant, overly romantic, sappy, pink and red filled travesty disguised as a dinner date. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, you're sitting there and you're just like, ah, yes, I'm gonna overspend on all the tawdry chocolate and gifts and flowers to give to this woman that I am professing my love to, only to have the flowers die and the romantic dinner be turned into fecal matter. Or you could, make memories actually doing something memorable. Just a thought. And if you have kids and you can't get the time to, make it a family outing. Just think about it. If it wasn't for her, those kids being the best gift she's ever given you, man. Change your perspective on it. Which leads me into my next little thing. And I know it's kind of gotten weird. I went from over-industrialization of holidays and I'm going off the rails now into, like, the dating world. I don't know about anybody else, but I've watched how the dating world's morphed. And it's a minefield out there. Like, it's an absolute minefield, right? And, I appreciate the subtlety of the Japanese system of dating, really, which is, you get to be friends with a person, and if you're friends with them long enough, you see if you both feel the same way, and then you become a couple. It's a great way of, doing courtship and getting it all figured out. And it's like, man, that's awesome. We should do that more often in this society. We don't, but we should. Having said that, I love how they, they've got this. It's kind of a trope that's been in anime, but their tropes usually come from their culture that it's based around. And what you'll have is a guy giving chocolates to her, usually handmade, if he cares enough. And they'll say things like, it's not that's not an obligatory chocolate. It means he actually likes her. A great indicator. You hand her chocolates to let you know you really like her. And after you hand her the chocolates, you have to wait a month until White Day on March 14th to figure out if she likes you back. If you don't get anything back on White Day, sorry, dude, she's just not into you. You just spent all that time making chocolates. Nice. And it's to show the time investment that you're willing to put into something for someone. That's what they appreciate. Because I can already hear people now, well, it's not much different than, here when you buy them chocolates. Well, it is and it isn't. Granted, it's more of an anime trope nowadays than it is probably in actual civilized Japan. But nevertheless, it's a great sentiment. I think, I think that places here in America should probably adopt that. Bring White Day back and say, hey, if you like him back, you give him an item that's white. That kind of thing. I think it's just a better system. Because then you're not sitting there going, oh, does she like me? Does she not like me? I know, maybe I'll call her and then find out. And then you call her and you find out she's with some other dude and that you're just an emotional crutch. That's kind of terrible. Wouldn't you rather just, go through the whole, hey, we're friends and then we became basically a couple? Don't you think that would be a much smoother transition? I mean, it seems that way to me. You get to know somebody, you spend a lot of time around them, you get to know what their likes are, their dislikes, and bond over certain things. Makes perfect sense to me. Then again, I'm old-fashioned. I'm the type of person that would, pick up a metal gauntlet and smack you upside the head. Be like, I challenge you to a duel. Like out of Robin Hood Men in Tights. That's just like, clang. Except he hit the sheriff and rotting him that way. Instead of knotting him, it was rotting him. But nevertheless, I mean, it's, it's that old chivalric style of life, I guess. Almost like Bushido code. Almost. Not entirely. I wouldn't go that far. But have a sense of justice. Have a sense of gentlemanly courtship behavior. Chivalry, essentially. Which nowadays, in modern society, has been called chauvinism. And it's like, wait, I'm here trying to prove to you that I'm a noble individual, and y'all are just like, nope. That's sexist for being a noble individual. Wait, pardon? I don't get it. It's like I open the door for you and pull out your seat, not because I should, but not because I have to, or that I should, but because I can. It's a way to show consideration. It's not just not somewhere along the line they got that misconstrued as being like, I don't know, saying, oh, you're unable to do it. I'm not saying you're unable to do it. I'm saying I'm doing it because I want to be courteous. Things got lost in a few generations. And it just... And that's just one of the many woes that exist out there today. Like, for example, I'm going to give somebody a hint. If you want to find a quality individual, right? Someone that is not going to be getting drunk all the time, someone that's not going to be a ne'er-do-well or a lout. Go to some higher class places, some swanky digs, Don't go to a rave. Don't go to a bar. Go to like a museum, an opera, an art exhibit. Something highbrow, not modern art though. You can separate the art from the artist, right? Like you could take a look at a piece of art and say, I understand the inspiration behind it, but I don't care for it. Right? It's like the people that had empty beer cans and that was actually a piece of art and it was at a modern art museum in like Germany or something, and they ditched it because they thought it was trash. I mean, like I said, I kind of get the idea that they're headed for. It's almost like it's a play on how disposable the world has become and how trash the world is being filled with. And that's why you have empty beer cans being displayed as art. It's almost like a critical eye on the world as a whole. I'm reading too much into that artwork. That wasn't even artwork. But like I'm talking like classical art. So like say you go take in some like Van Gogh or some what was his name? Picasso, Rembrandt, what have you. Or if you take in some other classical art, photography, or, you know, things from well-known playwrights. Anything of the sort. Live theater, etc. Go there. Because people of class and people that are usually highbrow aren't going to be found in a bar. Usually. Those people are going to be found in a place that is intellectually stimulating. I mean, look at me. Of course, people would say, what about you? I'm not a person that likes to go out to places. I find most outings to be tedious. I'm very introverted in that way. I don't like to go I don't like to go places that don't interest me, right? I'm a very I can't even say sheltered individual. I'm just a very withdrawn individual. I only like to go places and do things that really interest me or I find intellectually stimulating, so to speak. And people say, well, what do you mean intellectually stimulating? I could sit down and listen to a symposium about theoretical time travel. Right? I could. I would be... At first, I would probably be a little bit bored by it, but I want to know... Depending on the oration of the symposium, if the orator is very Ben Stein and it's just like, welcome to my symposium. We hope that you've had a wonderful time listening in. If the person is like that and is very dry and very dour and sullen and he has no enthusiasm in his voice, I'm going to fall asleep, right? But you get somebody up there that's just like, you'll never guess what we found. Okay, I won't guess. What'd you find? Get somebody up there that can actually give a symposium or a thesis and put some pizzazz on it. I mean, it doesn't have to have like fireworks and Kiss coming out playing Detroit Rock City, but you just gotta have something. You can't just have it be dry and, you know, just you can't have that dry, empty, emotionless, you know, speech. There has to be something to get the attention of the audience. So I could take in one of those. And then again, I'm not your normal individual. A lot of things fascinate me. And I would love to know more about them, but do I really want to sit there and pick up a book? No, I'm too busy trying to learn Japanese. So there's that. You know, I've got some of my schedule filled, and then I've got other parts of my schedule filled with people that always seem to need my assistance. They're elderly people on oxygen, and they always seem to need my assistance. I don't mind, but it just constantly eats into the allotted time that I have. there are times I like to kick back and relax too, just like anybody else. But this is something that I will say. When I was mentioning earlier that higher brow people, higher intellect people, are drawn to things that get them thinking. And if you're finding somebody with a high intellect, which never seems to be the case in modern society, and I've got a theory based on that, and I'll get into that in a second. Higher intellectual people want that, like, connection with intelligence. They want someone also intelligent who can give them food for thought, or kind of get them to think, or get them to, I don't know, give them a new idea, broaden their horizons, right? Gonna give you an anecdotal story time about people broadening your horizons and whatnot. So, first off, in high school, I was your typical, well, for lack of a better term, nerd. I was somebody who was into video games, anime, and I knew a lot of trivia, and I had a lot of knowledge, and I never let anybody see the knowledge. Never really let on that I was an intelligent individual, and this was because the big issue with being intelligent is you often get ostracized. And this was the case. This was the case almost every time I spoke up and people found out, hey, he's actually pretty smart. It was, wait, he's pretty smart. Cut him out of the group. Cast him aside. So, I was often ridiculed, left alone, left to my own devices. And I mean, I came to accept that. I actually came to enjoy being left alone, which was weird. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm being left alone. That ain't half bad. So, I'm sorry, I have a problem with my lower lip. There's a thing on it, and it's driving me nuts. Like a little skin flap on it. At any rate, I was always kind of just like, for lack of a better term, an outcast cat. Not really completely outcast, but like, just it left alone, but not at the same time completely alone, if that makes sense. Like, people left me alone to a degree, and then they would, torment me, or pick on me or whatever. And I was the target of bullying. But I went and I had an IQ test in high school. And despite some of my, playing on Call of Duty, my IQ test did not come back negative. It actually came back, and I had scored quite a bit. I had scored quite high on this IQ test. In fact, I had scored one in the 170 region. Now, having scored in the 170 region was not very well heard of in my town, because my town's not exactly large. So I scored a 170, but there's more to it. there's... I'm sitting there and I'm taking the test, right? And as I'm taking the test, the examiner, mind you, I was 16, 17, right? I was like a junior or a, not a freshman, but a sophomore. I was either a junior or a sophomore. So it's that time of the, that time in a guy's life where hormones are running rampant and you start looking at all the cuties, Start looking at all the cute ladies and you're just like, hey, she's cute. And so you'll look at them and you start thinking, oh, I bet I could get her to go on a date with me, And you start thinking, you start talking yourself up, etc. This is back in like 2000, 1999, right? This is a while ago. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this examiner, and she's blonde. She was cute, and I'm like, I'm going to try to be flirtatious, which for me is like saying, hi, I really like cheese. I'm not good at flirting. That's what I'm getting at. I was abysmal at it, right? So here I am trying to be flirty, cracking jokes, being me. And they're trying to get me to focus on doing this IQ test. And I'm like, you know what, though? I'm still busy being a goofball. Well, with my being a goofball, they were like, well, wow, that's not good. Levels are absolutely getting mulched. That lower resistance is not good. Not good for business. Ha! Got him. So, I'm sitting there and I'm, trying my best to be flirtatious. Much to my chagrin, it didn't work. At least at the time it was much to my chagrin. Nowadays, looking back on it, it's like, it's probably a good thing it didn't work. But back then, I was a teenage boy. What did you want from me, right? I was trying to do everything I could.
Good day.
So, I'm sitting there and I'm just goofing off. And I start asking also very poignant questions during the IQ test. For example, they showed a map. And they threw a little tiny paper map on the thing. It was laminated, so it was a very high quality exam. They spent the time and money for lamination. I give them +1 for that. Nevertheless, they're like, you are here at the arcade. And they show right where you are at the arcade. It's even marked on the map. That's like, your house is here. Tell us, from a first-person perspective, how you get home. And I sat there for a second, and I'm looking at the map. And then I look at the examiner, and I go, did I show up alone? Did I show up with a friend? Am I hungry? Did I come here by myself? Did I come by car? Did I come by public transit? Did I ride my bike? Is it cold outside? Is it hot outside? What time of year is it? I'm asking all these questions. And they're like, it doesn't, does this really matter? I said, yeah, it actually does, because it changes how I get home. Because if I came with a friend and I'm hungry and he's hungry, we're going to both get in the car. We're going to go someplace to eat before I go home. And they're like, just ideal situation. You came alone. You walked here. You're not hungry. How do you get home? And I said, is there anybody at home waiting for me? Is the door locked? Did I remember the key? I mean, they were getting upset with me. They're just like, just answer the question. Because the thing about an IQ test is it's basically solving logic puzzles in the shortest amount of time. That's it. You're basically solving a logic puzzle as quickly as possible. And that's how they dictate your IQ. So while I was doing this and I was asking these questions, I answered it, of course. At the end of the exam, we waited a week and a half. We get the results back, and it says your son has an IQ, a median IQ, of 173 to 178. Okay, that's not bad. I mean, that's low-end genius range. Sure. And then the examiner on the phone says it would have been 30 points higher if he was not goofing off. So my IQ would have been anywhere from 173 to 208. Possibly. And that was like, my parents kind of looked at me and they're like, then why don't you use it? Well, if you use your IQ, what happens? People don't like you. This is a fear of the unknown, you see. They don't know how smart you are. And when they know how smart when they find out how smart you are, they don't like it. Because that's perceived as a threat, you see. Because if you're that smart, you're dangerous, you see. That's how it's perceived. And it's kind of a sad fact of life, but at the same time, it's the truth. Like, they don't like people who are intelligent. And this extends to the dating world, right? As by and large, the people out there don't want somebody who's intelligent. They really don't. You know, this is from my personal experience, okay? So it's my personal experience through life, what I've lived. Women, in general, do not seem to chase after an intelligent man. Because women don't want an intelligent man to be able to see through the facade that has been put up. And people say, what do you mean the facade that's been put up? You have women that wear, you know, fake eyebrows and stuff like that. And they don't want people to see through the facade. They want people to just be like, ah, yes, well, take it at face value. Oh, I'm sorry, but no, I'm not going to just take things at face value. No one should. You should always inquire. Always ask questions. Always peer deeper into the void, so to speak.
What do you mean?
And it's this...
What do you need?
It comes across that... I'm not saying that all women are deceivers, right? I'm not. There's a lot of them that are. There's a lot of them that they only want to deceive people for money, or they only want to deceive people for something. They look at it like, what can I get from it? Like, they want to know what they can get out of it, right? They look at it like, how does this benefit me? How can I leverage this? And it happens a lot. And it's part of being in a materialistic world. So it's not limited to just women. It's limited to everybody. Everybody likes to try to leverage things, whether it be a business deal, a friendship. And you shouldn't leverage your friendships, just so you know. But they like to do it because they feel like they can get ahead. And it's that materialistic shackle that's causing a big problem in today's society. It's just, I've noticed it much more readily available in women, that they like to kind of use men for what they can get out of them and then discard them. That's how it comes across. It's how it feels. Now, like I said, these are my personal experiences. Is this the truth? Well, no, because each person's different experiences are different. Does it make me jaded towards people? No, it doesn't. It makes me not readily trust them, but it doesn't make me jaded. I mean, who wouldn't be apprehensive when, you're sitting there and your entire life you eventually hear, yes, you're being used for something. You don't want to be used for something, so you just kind of... You tend to be hyper-selective on where you put your energy, so to speak. Of course, this is going to be a hot-button topic. People are like, oh boy, he's one of those, misogynistic people. It's like, no, quite the contrary. Most of the people I help are women. I go out of my way to help them. And it's just because I was raised to be that guy that says, hey, you should do something for people because you have the capacity to do it. That's how I was raised. And yeah, it's it seems to not really run afoul in today's society, but it's, I would say, looked down upon. Like, today's society almost looks at it and goes, that's not really a noteworthy trait to have. And they like to turn up their nose toward it. I mean, I personally don't want people to turn up their nose to somebody being charitable and being kind, but they like to turn their nose up to it and say, nope, I don't need it. I don't need your charity. And they usually get offended and storm off. Those that don't are like, sure, yeah, you can help me out, and then immediately proceed to use you for everything they can and then toss you aside. Had that happen multiple times. But being able to see through the thinly veiled facade that people put in front of you is... How do I want to put this? It's both a blessing and a curse. Because if you just bought the facade, you'd be happier. Blissfully ignorant, but happier, right? Being able to pull back the veil on the facade reveals the truth, and the truth sets you free, of course. But at the same time, you're often miserable because you've unveiled the truth and found out not so good. The truth isn't all that great. And if you need an anecdotal reason for this, as I've heard multiple times in my life, and this was all from women, right? With one exception, I think one other person said, I'm too smart for my own good. I believe that was my history teacher. And that was back in high school. Outside of that, it's always been women that say I'm too smart for my own good. Now, let's look at this logically. Why would you say that? Just using simple logic, why would you say that to somebody, that you're too smart for your own good? What that means is you're too smart for me to lie to. You'll catch it. You'll catch me in a lie, and I don't want to be caught. That's how it translates. Because no one can be too smart for their own good. Because if you're smart, you're smart. You can see things for what they really are. You can understand deeper concepts. But when you're too smart for your own good, well, what's my own good? Define good. So if it's not too smart for my own good, it's you're too smart to be fooled. Now, why would they want to fool you? Because they intended to deceive you immediately anyway. See? And now we come to the crux of the problem. They intended to deceive you anyhow. Therefore, you're too smart for your own good. See? Because if people didn't intend to deceive you straight away, they wouldn't tell you you're too smart for your own good. They would just look at you and be like, they always say the other option. And I've heard this one a great deal of times too. Man, you got a lot of knowledge, don't you? That's somebody saying you're knowledgeable. You've got a lot of intellect. That's the proper way of saying you're an intelligent individual, and I acknowledge that. It's not saying you're too smart. Saying it, like I said, when you say it that way, that tells me you're trying to deceive me. And yes, my history teacher back in the day was trying to deceive me as well. He used to smoke, and he didn't want any of the students to know that he smoked. He used to go to great lengths to try to not get spotted with a cigarette in his hands. I grew up around two smokers. My parents used to smoke all the time. And there's distinguishing characteristics that take a long time to fade on smokers. First is the smell of cigarettes on the breath and clothing. The second is the cigarette stain in the two fingers where they hold their cigarette, whether it's on their left hand or on their right hand. His was always on his right hand, in between his two fingers. So the one time I saw him after Academic All-Stars, I was holding the door open for him because we were at an away match for Academic All-Stars. This is another anecdotal story. And I'm holding the door open for them, right? And he's like, "You're a gentleman and a scholar." And he's sitting there chiefing on a cigarette like this. He throws it away. And that was only after I had caught him prior. We were in class, and we were taking a test in sociology because he also taught sociology. And he put his hand on the table when I had a question, and we're sitting there taking a test. He put his hand down on the table, and I asked him a question on how he wanted me to respond on this because it was very analogous, and I could have responded in one of many number of ways. And he's like, "I want you to respond in every way possible without overdoing it." Okay, fair enough. I'll do it. So I responded in every conceivable way I could without overdoing it. After class, I went up there and I handed the exam, and everybody had already left. And I said, you probably shouldn't smoke. It's not good for you. And he just kind of looked at me and he goes, "I don't smoke." And I said, "You can't fool these eyes. You have a smoke stain between your two fingers, and there's smoke on your breath." I said, that's a chronic smoker's thing. Chronic smokers have a tobacco stain on their fingers for when they're holding their cigarettes. And all he did is he cracked this little tiny smile, and he goes, "Shh." And I'm like, yeah. And I was about to leave. He goes, "You're too smart for your own good." And it's like, he was the only guy that's ever said that to me. But he was trying to deceive me by trying to deceive me into thinking he wasn't smoking. But that's going to do it for this video. I'm going to continue and do another video right after this. It'll pick up right where I left off. I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry about my little esoteric jaunt. Started out with an over-industrialization of holidays and kind of went off toward, I guess, the plight of mankind in almost like a neo-feminist era. Kinda. Anyway. It was all just philosophical. It was all just a philosophical jaunt like I normally do. But I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. And I hope everybody has a fantastic evening. I want everyone to have a fantastic evening. That's what I want. I want everybody to have a fantastic evening. A wonderful tomorrow. And as always, have a good one.